Hi, folks. This is Rick Doc Walker, the DOC.
This is John Kime, and you're listening to the Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted.
What's going on, Rally? On to the next one, man. How you doing?
Oh yeah, man. I was ready to move on to the next one when the clock struck zero in Tampa. So this one, doesn't really move the needle, or I shouldn't say that loss doesn't really move the needle because in my mind, yeah, I wanted us to win. I said we would win, but when I look at it realistically, as we said on the pod, it was the fourth preseason game, unfortunately, that counted. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. It's just I enjoy all of our fans, like fellow fans on social media, but I took the day off from looking at it, and I feel a lot better because I'm not seeing all the griping and the complaining and the bitching and moaning, and not even to get into politics. Like, right, like last night, we all know what happened. And for those
Mm-hmm.
wondering, it's Wednesday, the 11th, September 11th, we're recording this. And, obviously everything that happened on this day 23 years ago, you guys don't listen to this podcast for any of that, right? So we're not going to talk about any of those things. But last night and just yesterday in general, getting off of social media because I was tired of hearing fans complain about the team and the loss and this and that. And then also didn't really want to hear people's opinions on the debate, regardless of which way they side, whether it's left or right or whatever the hell it may be. And today, Coach was talking about getting ready for Tampa, not Tampa, getting ready for New York. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's all that matters is let's just move on. Let's get ready for New York. Let's forget about last week. Tampa could be a juggernaut. We don't know, but the game's over with, and we got 16 more left. And to me, it's 16 more chances to see what JD can do. And if he is ultimately that quarterback that we've been searching for what? I don't even know how many years now, man. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
More than a decade, yeah, I tell you.
Easily more than a decade. I mean, I guess the saving grace is did you see the because I went back and watched a bunch of games on the NFL Plus because you can do the fast forward and no commercials and stuff like that. So I went back and I watched the Falcons game because we're playing them later on this year, and I kind of wanted to see how Kirk did, and I saw that he didn't do too well in Atlanta. And I hate to say it makes me feel good when I see like past players from this team not do as well, but Kirk didn't exactly tear it up down there. So, I was excited to see that because I'd say he probably is the last good quarterback we had on this roster.
Definitely. I'll agree with you. He and Alex Smith. Alex Smith was pretty good, even
Is
though
that
he was,
just, yeah.
yeah.
Was he though? I
I mean,
mean,
he had us. What were we? We were like in the winning column with him.
we
So I
were,
mean,
we were, yeah. I
yeah, and
mean, you can't deny that.
heck no, you can't. And he was pretty much the last quarterback that put us in the winning column before obviously what happened to him, and we've been in search ever since. So
It was just boring ass football, man. It just to watch, it was no fun. And I mean, I'm all for
mhm.
defensive games, but I mean, the dinking and the dunking, it was just, there was nothing. I mean, granted, Jayden's average throw was 1.5 yards past the line of scrimmage. So maybe we're in for some of that,
Hey,
but it was just boring.
well, like Alex, we know that Jayden can. Alex could go down the field, but he chose not to. So I mean, very rare. But we know that Jayden can go down the field.
He
We
can,
saw
he
it.
can.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Let's
got a
just,
rocket of an arm.
look at some of his LSU film. So we know, what he can actually do. And I'm going to steal a line from Grant Paulson, from Grant and Danny show on 1067. Grant said something during his show the other day. And when I went back, have you had a chance to actually go back and watch the game, or you just put that out of your mind because we just, got a bunch
No,
of whooped?
excuse me, I haven't watched it at all. No.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't do yourself a favor. Don't watch it. It's other than Jaden's like 2 touchdown runs, maybe just the 1 touchdown run. Don't watch it. But there were a lot of times where I think Jayden was looking for college open receivers, not NFL open receivers.
Okay.
And there's a big difference by being open in the NFL and being open in college, right? In the NFL, your window to being open is so small. In college, receivers are open by a mile. And watching some of Jayden's highlights, hell yeah, he's chucking that ball down there because those guys are just wide open. There are a couple times, and really Terry only went in motion once against the Bucks. And that one play he went in motion, he was actually open by maybe 2 steps. But 2 steps in the NFL is open by a mile. And he just didn't hit him, didn't throw. And then I went back and looked at a couple other plays. And there are some other plays, specifically the ones where Jayden decided to tuck and run. He had receivers that were open, NFL open, not college open.
I totally agree with you, but I'll say this. I'm not going to go with that he thought about the whole college aspect. And I say that because in camp, he was making those windows and the tight throws in those tight windows. So he can do it. I think that what hit him, in all honesty, was the bright lights got to him. That's what I believe got to it. It was the bright lights. Let's face it, man. Practice is practice. You're supposed to shine. You're supposed to go all out. Preseason, the kid only played XYZ snaps with some backups. So, but he still knows, we know what he can do. I think we got down early and he didn't want to put that pressure on himself because he was already pressured. His sphincter was already tight. He could he could freaking crack a walnut with that thing. So, in time, we know that he will get better because we saw him make those throws. And I think, once again, there's a level of relaxation in the mini camps and that type of thing because there's no pressure. But now this is for the money, and that pressure goes up on you. So I think that give him some time, he will get better, and he will be able to make those throws. But I do agree with you, though.
Well, to me, this season is about evaluating him. Last season was about evaluating Sam Howell. This season's about evaluating Jayden Daniels and where are his strengths and where are his weaknesses. And I'm going to push back a little bit about mini camp, training camp, and practice because I'm sorry, but he was going up against our secondary, and our secondary is bad. It is iron sharpening against a marshmallow, right? They are just Charmin soft, man. I mean, maybe that should be who the next sponsor is for the Commanders, is Charmin and the secondary, because
wow.
I mean, there's no defending Emmanuel Forbes. And Coach Quinn got asked, I can't remember, it might have been John Keim. I think it actually was John Keim today during his presser, Emmanuel Forbes, was he benched or was he taken out because of injury? And I'm paraphrasing, because Forbes was getting x-rays looked at. And Quinn didn't say exactly what happened, right? And he didn't say that he was taken out because of bad performance. But we all know what was going on.
Yeah.
He got taken out because of bad performance. And frankly, I think they would have taken out Benjamin St-Juste, but you only got so many active players on your roster that play defensive back, right? And you got Sandra still, and it's his first games. I mean, the secondary, it was an issue. There were communication problems. And Baker just ran up and down the field on us. And
oh, yeah.
What's scaring a lot of this fan base, and whether it's right or wrong, is Daniel Jones has done the exact same thing against us over the past couple times he's played us. And not even Daniel Jones, just the Giants in general, right? I mean, last year, Tommy DeVito coming in and just whooping our butt. Tommy Cutlets, who would have thought that would have happened? And in the last 12 games, we have played the Giants, and I hate this stat, but we are 8-3-1 against them. Is that 12? Yeah. In the last 12 games, we are 8-3-1 versus the Giants. So I don't blame fans for being worried, because that's just what they have done to us over the past, 6 seasons. Yeah. And we're almost like that, I guess, abused puppy syndrome, right? Just the Giants raise their hand and we just cower, even though we've got a new owner, we've got a new coach, right? We're just a little worried and terrified about what's going to happen this weekend, right or wrong.
Well, you are right about that, and that's just how it is. I mean, let's face it, Daniel Jones alone is 5-1-1. I mean, they have kicked our butts. I remember even when we were just talking about Kirk Cousins. We were win and we could be in. And no, we didn't win. And everyone was saying you guys are poised to win. I mean, every time we've played them, basically, we've been poised to win and beat them, and they've just mopped the floor with us. We've made them look like world beaters, and I understand why people may be looking at this the same way since we just came off of a shellacking last week. So even though we are 0 and both teams are 0 and 1, for whatever reason, the Giants have had our number, and I'm hoping that it stops this Sunday. 3 days in a wake up is what I'm hoping that it stops.
I am too. And we'll go over our keys to hopefully how that stops. But really, Daniel Jones isn't what worries me this game. Is the Giants don't have the receivers that the Bucks have. They don't have, Mike Evans, first ballot Hoffer. They don't have Godwin, right? I'm watching that Giants game against the Vikings and watching it back, and those receivers don't scare me. They do a lot of 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets, and maybe that's just their game plan versus the Vikings. And maybe they're going to change the game plan up against us because our secondary is weak. It's a copycat league. And we all know that coaches watch film and they're going to see what worked for Baker and try and implement that against us.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows? But this is actually what Dan Quinn had to say about how you address the copycatness of the NFL.
Generally, what we do with the team, if there was a play that was an issue, we bring it into the game plan this week like we're studying the other team. So let's say there was a pass play given up or a run or a blitz. That's now part of the game plan to say they have something similar to this look. They have one that's this. So it's important because it's part of the self-scout. You can turn the page too quickly to the opponent and this is what they do, this is what they do. But you also have to recognize they're studying you. And so the self-scout part of it is something that I look at, like this morning I was going back through the game again today to make sure, anything that I missed, that's my role to keep pushing those things to the forefront to say this look, this play, this specific thing could likely come up again. Will it be shown in the exact same format as you discussed? No. So that's a really important part of it. Self-scout is not something that you put off till a bye week or the end of the season. I think it's a weekly part of your assessment of your team.
So I have no doubt that this coaching staff has self-scouted all their deficiencies from this past week. And they watched all of the things that the Vikings did well against the Giants and are going to pinpoint that. And Sam Darnold is a quarterback that has really been just off in space, hasn't really mattered at all for a while. Next thing you know, the Vikings lose Kirk to Atlanta, and then they lose their first-round draft pick. So Sam Darnold comes in. Darnold didn't light the world on fire. He was 19-24 for 208 yards, had 2 touchdowns and a pick. So it's not like the Giants' secondary is an issue. The Giants actually have a somewhat decent defense, at least against us. They've always had a good pass rush. And going back and watching that film, it was interesting. But what they did do well against the Giants was run the football. Aaron Jones had 14 carries for 94 yards. And they had a $111 as a team. What we did do well last week, granted, it was with our quarterback, not a running back, was run the football. So maybe in that self-scout, the team realizes, hey, we only had, let's see, how many carries did we have last week? Going back and looking at it. Austin Eckler had 2 rushes. B-Rob had 12. We only had 14 carries from our running backs. We got to do something to change that, right? Maybe we don't go down by 13 and we don't even give Jayden a chance in this early script to get uncomfortable. Maybe we give him a chance to actually get comfortable instead of making the first play from scrimmage a pass at the line of scrimmage, and give him a chance to get a feel for the game. I mean, talk about nerves. They just did a bad job trying to get this kid calm on his first game with his entire family there when it actually matters.
Yeah. it but even if his family wasn't there and the first game, your first pro game, you've got so much pressure on you, and it showed. And
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that he calms himself down. Maybe because he's at home in front of the home crowd. Maybe that might help. Or sometimes you do worse when you're actually in front of your friends because you know that they nitpick more so than unknown folks. Uh, I'm just hoping that the kid just does better and that each week we get better. That's what I'm hoping, man.
And I hear you. And it's just, I feel that there's going to be more pressure for Jayden because he's going to look up during warmups and he's going to see all those fans with those Tressway 5 jerseys thinking they're his. Just playing. He's going to
Oh,
see all those fans rocking his jersey out there, all those kids rocking that jersey. He's going to be at, it still sounds weird, Northwest Stadium, his home field. And how can you not have nerves, right? To me, that
yeah,
is where Cliff Kingsbury and this staff has to go through and force him to calm down, force him to get his feet underneath him and give him some easy things to do. And you can't just hand the ball off the first 15 plays. That's not realistic. But
hmm,
at least give him some things that are more geared to someone's strengths. And even if they are some short passes, right? Just keep them ahead of the sticks. We were, what was it? Going back and looking. I mean, on third down, I want to say we were 2 for 8. Yeah, we were 2 for 8 on third down. I mean, you can't do that to the kid.
can't win. Yeah,
You got to give him manageable situations. And that's been with every freaking quarterback we have had here. We've just always done poor on it. But this is what worries me a little bit with Jayden. This is his first game in the NFL. Now, this will be his second game in the NFL. I don't care if you won the Heisman Trophy. I don't care what you did in college. It's going to take you some time to get used to the speed of the NFL. Well,
hmm,
you would think so, right?
yeah.
Not according to him. Take a listen.
And during the preseason, you didn't see a whole lot of frontline starters that you were going up against. But last week, naturally, you went up against, 11 starters. What was the speed of the game like for you? Did it slow down at all for you?
Yeah, for sure, it slowed down. Obviously, it's different. You got guys that have been playing in this league for a long time and very good football players at that. So be able to go out there and just compete against the best. And, that was a tough defense to go up against for your first start ever. Obviously, with Todd Bowles and his scheme and with the players they got over there, man, it was a good test for me.
I get you've got to be cocky to be a quarterback in this league and to be successful in this league, but you also need to be humble to a degree. I mean, if I'm the Giants, I am cutting up that clip and saying, oh, it's slowed down for you? All right, let's speed this thing up and see if you can handle it.
Well, that same aspect happened to Justin Fields in Chicago. He said that the game was slow for him, and then that next game they pummeled him. I will never forget that. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm good to go. It's slowed down for me." And they sent, I'm not sure if it was a blitz or whatever have you, but if I'm not mistaken, they sacked him and his helmet came off, and they were like, "How slow is that?" So yeah, I agree with you to a degree. You have to be cocky, but there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what? It was a little faster than preseason, but I'm studying hard. I'm doing what I need to do to overcome that, and I'm ready to take on the Giants. So you give a little something, but then you redeem yourself at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a better way to answer that question. There's a
Yeah.
better way to address that question, whether you believe it or not. You believe the words coming out of your mouth. There's just, it concerns me to a degree that he actually thinks that. And I am hoping that the veterans at that point, pull him aside and say, hey, let's maybe you need to slow down here a little bit, because after that performance last week, and some are hyping it up, right? But for me, he is a quarterback, not a running back. And Dan Quinn mentioned it during his past couple of press conferences. There were throws that Jayden could have made on those 16 runs. Maybe 2 to 3 of them were designed. The other ones, there were throws he could have made. And this goes back to talking about NFL Open versus College Open, right? And there were some people that were College Open that Jayden just did not see, and he just scrambled. And he moved the chains to a degree. There was one drive where we didn't get a single third down, right? That's because Jayden used his legs and kept it going. But we cannot consider that an actual good game plan to win. I mean, for me, actually, let me hear your answer first. How many carries should Jayden have for us to win this game? And if he has more than that, do you see us losing? Like, what's a good number for you?
It depends on how many read option plays that they play and how many times that end bites down on the running back. So it's hard to say because that's in our offense. If this was like Tom Brady, we know he doesn't run the ball, but we know Jayden does, and we know that let's face it, he likes the action. So I'm hoping that. How about this? I'm hoping that it's less than 16.
Yeah.
I really am. And the second part of the question, if we are winning, I don't want him to put himself in harm's way like that. And I don't think that the team will put him in harm's way. If we're losing, I feel that he's going to do whatever he needs to do to try to win the game. So it's just so unpredictable right now. And I know that that's not a really good answer, but
No, I got you.
I just don't want him to run the ball more than 16 times or even close to it.
To me, I'm just going to go with around number 10. If Jayden has more than 10 carries in this game, then I think we're losing this game because we're not following the game plan that we need to actually win the game, right? He's trying to put it all on his shoulders versus relying on, some of the other playmakers on that team. Obviously, we're not counting the offensive linemen. So the receivers, the tight ends, Zach Ertz was open a ton this past week. Jayden just didn't hit him, just didn't see him, right? And there's just other guys that are on this team other than Terry McLaurin. Everyone's hyping that Terry didn't do anything. Well, we need to make sure these wide receivers get a chance to do something. And that goes back to Kingsbury scheming something up, but getting him prepared. But you can't, Kingsbury can only do so much. It's up to the players to execute. And if Jayden just pulls the ball down and doesn't do what he needs to do, then we got a big problem. So for me, if he runs more than 10 times, I don't see this being a very good Sunday for us.
Well, see, I think that he may have seen Ertz open. I think he may have, but his fight inside of himself wouldn't allow him to throw the ball. That's what I think. I mean, I could be wrong. And unless he tells me otherwise, the kid has good vision. We've seen it. He has good vision. I just don't believe that I think that he got caught up in the moment instead of realizing, hey, I do have teammates that I can get the ball to. I'm going to go ahead and get this done myself. I've got to prove to myself that I can play in this league. And he did it in college. He made it happen with his feet, and he felt that he could probably do the exact same thing. Now, could I be wrong? I could be, but I'm going to give that young man credit to know that he can see the field. And if he can't, then he sure pulled the wool over everybody's head.
For me, he has to prove it in an NFL game.
Yes.
The same practice anymore. And granted, we heard the stories about the joint. We talked about his joint practice in Miami, right? He had, I think, 5 or 6 touchdowns in the red zone, right? But that's joint practice where they're not hitting the kid. They're not taking him down. I need to see it in the game before I can say that. And
live fire.
If Sam Howell and that experiment last year taught us anything, I need to see it consistently and for a long stretch of time. And I just haven't seen that yet. And I'm fine with that. As a fan, I'm okay with that because this was one game. I need to see improvement. Even if it's a one-step improvement. I'm not expecting a Heisman-like improvement for this kid. Even though he says the game has slowed down for him, sorry, I don't buy it. There's no way it can. I don't know any rookie that can actually say that it has slowed down. And yes, okay, Robert had a good game against the Saints, but that was a gimmick offense that the NFL had never gone up against before, right?
Mhm.
The zone read option, all those things, NFL coordinators prep for that now. They know how to stop that. They know how to get to it. So they didn't do that back in 2012 when Robert was coming out and doing that. So I hate to say it, but right now there is no new offense that's really going to freak them out that they're going to see from a coordinator perspective. And best believe, because of the copycat nature, those coordinators, they saw the playbook on how to make Jayden beat you with his legs, not his arm. And they're going to start doing that this week. So we'll see what happens. Last week, the Commanders were ranked 26th in the power rankings. And we beat it like a dead horse at this point. We know what happened in that game. For
What
you,
happened, Ted?
a couple things. For you, plus or minus 3, where do you think they put us now?
Well, obviously, since we took an L, we're going to lose rank. So I'm gonna say, I'm sorry, gain. So I'm gonna say we were 26. We're 27 now.
Plus or minus 3, 27.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 27. Because we were 26. So I'm gonna say 27.
Nah, you're actually right. I hit the wrong button. So we're ranked 29th now. So we actually
29th.
we went down 3 spots. And just to give you teams above us, right? We were 26th. The Titans, who are 0-1, are 26th. The Patriots, who are 1-0, are 27th. They went up 4 spots. The Broncos, who were 27, are now 28, and we are 29th. And it says it's clear that even with the sweeping changes the Commanders made this offseason, the picture remains incomplete in Washington. The Week 1 results were disappointingly similar to a lot of what the team managed last season. The defense couldn't get off the field on third downs. The coverage was loose and sloppy. The offense looked new, but not in an impressive way, as Jayden Daniels and company struggled to hit chunk plays. The longest connection with a wide receiver was for 15 yards. Terry McLaurin was targeted once in the first half, and his 2 catches came when the game was pretty well out of reach. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler each turned a short catch into a long gain, and Daniels made hay with his legs. So the Commanders generated just 7 points through the first 40-plus minutes. My preseason optimism around this team hasn't totally waned, but reality arrived quickly with a Week 1 ice bucket down in steamy Tampa.
Damn.
So, good news is, guess who's got a higher ranking than us?
Who's that?
The Giants.
They've got a
So
higher ranking than us.
they're
What's their-
31st. We're 29th. So
Okay.
for the second straight year, the Giants were roasted in their home opener, and Daniel Jones was equally bad in both games. On Sunday, he threw a pair of interceptions against the Vikings and barely hit the 50% completion mark. The first pick was a run back for a score that drove a stake into the Giants' hearts when they were still just 15 points behind. Jones's legs can be his occasional saving grace, but he didn't do much with those either. Let's be fair, though. How many quarterbacks could make this offense hum? Outside of the truly elite, the answer is likely not many. The revamped O-line looked like it needed more vamping. The ground game was virtually non-existent, and the defense was carved up by Sam Darnold in a stadium that he's been booed out of more than once. I wouldn't have known Brian Dable was calling plays had he not told us he would be doing so. Outside of a few Malik Neighbors grabs, it was about as bad as you could have imagined, with only the Panthers' misery sparing the Giants from the basement. And went back and watched all of Daniel Jones's throws, and
What'd you see?
it was bad. It was just flat out ugly. And I'll send it to you. There's an Instagram video I saw out there, and it's of the Giants players practicing. And basically the jugs machine was messing up, and the balls were like trickling out and hit the ground. And it said the Giants players were having to adjust for Daniel Jones in practice.
Wow.
And I can't help but laugh at it. But
They were falling short, huh?
oh, super short, man. And it was freaking hilarious. But the good news is a majority of Daniel Jones's throws were less than 10 yards. And he did not look good. And maybe that's because he was going up against the Vikings. And granted, the Vikings don't have the best pass defense. But this is one stat that also made me chuckle. Since signing his 4-year, $110 million contract,
Wow.
Daniel Jones has thrown more pick sixes than he has actual touchdowns. So, unless he's playing us, and granted, he didn't really play us last year, he has thrown more touchdowns to the other team than he has to his actual team. So, if anything, that's a positive for us, right? We get a chance to, the Giants don't have Saquon.
It's always positive until they play us. And I told you, he makes us just looks like scrubs, and the Giants like world beaters. But hey, my fingers are crossed, fingers and toes are crossed, and I'm hoping that we can bounce back. And I know that everybody was in the film room to work on their communication, and there's certain things that need to be heard in that secondary. I just don't want to go down in flames, man. I really don't.
I hear you. And speaking of the secondary, this is actually something that concerns me, right? We know that they got rid of Cade York. He had one bad game.
Yeah.
That actually all of his screw ups led to Tampa Bay points, right? The 2 missed field goals, they got points off of that. And the kickoff that went out of bounds, they got points off of that because they carved up our defense anyway, but they got good field position. They got the ball at the 40.
Great field position.
So we cut him, right? Jahan Dotson, he wasn't cutting the mustard. All right, let's just trade him and ship him off to a division rival in Philly. Granted, and it kind of annoyed me when fans were doing this, and I'm a little hypocritical when I say I enjoyed watching Kirk not do well this weekend for the Falcons, but fans were kind of laughing that Jahan didn't have a single catch or do anything for Philly this week, whereas we were just cheering the guy on a couple weeks ago. And to me, it's a little bit different because Kirk didn't want to sign here and stay here. And they also did him wrong with his contract, blah, blah, blah. But Jahan got traded. And fans, I guess, being happy that he's not doing anything in Philly, maybe that's just not me, and that's not how I roll, and celebrating that. But there's another player on this roster that is not doing well and not cutting the mustard in Emmanuel Forbes. When do they need to call out his performance? Because the coaches and Peters did say, or at least Coach Quinn said, we didn't look at last year's tape. Well, maybe you should have looked at last year's tape. And I know they were being facetious when they said that. They looked at the tape, obviously.
They had to have.
Yeah. But the evaluation of Forbes, when's it time to call out the bad performance? Well, this is actually what Quinn had to say about that.
What is the evaluation timeline like before accountability starts to set in if guys aren't performing? Is it a week, a month, a season?
I'd say definitely daily. It's like if you have a really high standard for accountability, then I think you address it at the moment. You don't have to, that doesn't look good, I'm not going to say anything and hope it gets better. Not a good technique. So for us, you don't have to be a jerk to confront somebody, but you do have to do it. You have to say, this wasn't right, and this has to change. And if it doesn't, there's consequences for that. Doesn't mean you have to embarrass somebody or, make a big scene of them, but you do have to say, this is the evaluation. So in each game, we grade every player. And so you want to see consistency. So depending on where the performance is, if there's a dip down and there's multiple, then there has to be consequences for that. But I wouldn't say I don't put a timeline on a certain part of accountability. If I see something, I say something.
If I see something, I say something. You buying it?
Man, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. And I say that because I don't know, did Forbes get benched because of injury or performance? But I do know that he wasn't out there. And based off of him not being out there, it seemed like they may have played just a tad bit better, even though they caught even though they got caught up in the backfield looking, So I don't know. I like to believe that Quinn seems as though he's a no nonsense type of guy, and I mean everybody's got a little bit of rub to him, to where you got to try to sound a little bit better than what you got to fib a little bit. So I think that he, in his mind, is telling everybody the truth, but we saw differently, and so that's the biggest question: was he cut due to performance or to injury? Or not cut, but benched rather. So we got to find out from the injury report and more this week to see where he is. But we know that he's got all of the tools. I just think that he's just too light in the butt. That's what I really believe that it is. I think that he's just too light in the butt to hang with these guys, and it comes back to bite him.
And being real about it, he was projected as a first-round pick, right? So it's not like the Commanders and Rivera reached for him in the first round. I think a lot of people would say they took him too high, or they took him over someone that they should have taken in the first round from a defensive back perspective. But looking at the injury report right now, specifically Emmanuel Forbes, it's his thumb, right? And he was a full participant. So I heard he went in for an X-ray. Didn't know what the X-ray was on. If you're a DB and it's your thumb, granted, I'm thinking you're a DB because you can't catch anyone, right? It's like, it reminds me of what's his face? Quentin Dunbar was a wide receiver and he switched to DB, right?
Dunny, yeah.
He couldn't catch, so they made him a DB. So if that's what the problem was, I'm sorry, your ass got benched, and Igbenogany came in because it wasn't because your thumb hurt you, and maybe his thumb did hurt him, and he's a little soft. Charmin sponsors the secondary. It is what it is.
Here we go.
But it was his thumb, bro. I mean, if he is starting on Sunday, are you going to be pissed? Or are you going to say, okay, let's give him another chance?
Will I be pissed? No, I'm not going to be pissed. But I will say that if they go over the top and they've got not a touchdown per se, but a lot of yards, then I'm going to put my eye on them and say, all right, hey, just like we gave our kicker, hey, you basically got 2 games in your contract and we can cut you. We're not going to cut him, obviously, but you got maybe 2 or 3 catches and I got to let you go. I got to put somebody else in. I just got to do it.
I'm just hoping that he is not a liability for that long, right? And to me, was a ball hawk in college. This ain't college, right? This is the NFL. We've been talking about it since the show started, right? I don't even watch college football. Could care less. That's just me.
You don't? Wow.
No, I need my Saturdays to get the tailgate ready. And
I got you.
If it's an away game, spend time with the wife so I stay married, right? Because, Sunday is all football for us, and I've been prepping this week's tailgate since Tuesday. And this means I basically haven't. Oh, from a food menu perspective?
Yeah.
Let's see here. You caught me off guard. Let me pull that up.
New York theme, I assume.
Oh yeah. No, obviously New York themed. So for appetizers, we're having a Chinatown poo-poo platter. Oh. So if you've ever ordered anything from a Chinese restaurant, little mom and pop, you know what a poo-poo platter is, but it's going to be egg rolls and different kind of dumplings. We're having giant meatballs in marinara. There's going to be a falafel salad with a lemon tahini dressing. For sides, we're going to do Shake Shack style crinkle cut fries with Old Bay. Shake Shack actually is from New York. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
We're doing Tsunami Spin Chinatown stir fry vegetables. Dizzy Pig is coming back on as a sponsor of the tailgate, so we're going to use all Dizzy Pig seasonings exclusively. New York City dirty water dogs with a big apple sauerkraut that you can put on top. I don't like sauerkraut, but I make this apple sauerkraut that's actually pretty tasty.
What's the difference?
So, you got chunks of apples in it, so it's not too sour.
Okay.
Little Italy.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely gonna have some food. So we're doing Little Italy Italian sausage sandwiches with peppers and onions. Halal cart chicken and gyro platter with some saffron rice and some tzatziki sauce and some pitas. And then New York umami style burgers. It's a new burger place in New York City called Umami Burgers. These things are freaking delicious. So we're going to try and replicate that. And then little black and white cookies. So for dessert, simple little sweet to cleanse or finish your palate off with.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to stop by there along my travel, and I will be setting my watch for my steps so that I know how far I walked. And this year the game won't be in the rain. We are expecting some great pre-fall weather, man. So I'm looking forward to it.
You know, if it rains, I'm going to blame you. Right?
No. No.
No, it's supposed to rain next week. So this weekend should be good. And I'm hoping and praying you're right. We actually just got 4 brand new tents. My little brother surprised
Nice.
the hell out of me. And next thing you know, I walk outside to take the trash, and there are 4 tents that just got dropped off by FedEx sitting on my driveway.
Mm.
Where the hell did these come from? Like, what's going on? I had no idea. Then he sent me a text message after he saw they got delivered. So we're changing that up. It's going to be a fun time out there. We got DJ Mark's going to be back, and we got a film crew coming out for week 1 that's going to be filming a documentary on tailgating at Northwest Stadium. And I don't know why they chose our stadium first, or frankly, in general, but I'm looking forward to it because did you ever see that Emerald show I did?
Yeah.
It makes me sad to watch clips of it because the parking lot was empty. Like, the film crew from Emerald came out after we had lost, I want to say, 4 or 5 games in a row. The team wasn't doing good. Everyone's mad. I think Snyder still owned the team at that point. So it looked like it was preseason. There was just no one there. So I know for a fact that this week's going to be full, unless there's like drama on the freaking Woodrow Wilson Bridge, which did you ever go? It was a playoff game in 1999. And there was a guy that was basically threatening to jump off of the Woodrow the morning of the game. So traffic got held up and there was a freaking jumper before a freaking playoff game, right? Imagine how many people stuck in traffic would just push his ass off the bridge.
Nah.
So I'm sitting out there at the stadium like, what's going on? Did they move the kick? Did I just not realize? No, everybody was stuck because this guy was jumping off the bridge. And I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't think he jumped, but talk about making it all about yourself that day.
Wow. Yeah, they made you guys look like no one's ever coming to these games. But it was a playoff game, you said. So
yeah. People eventually got there. So, and we did win the game, and we ended up going to Tampa and losing after that. And I was down in Tampa. But another person that seems to make this matchup all about themselves is who we talked about earlier, Daniel Jones. And this is what DQ had to say about what makes him special.
And you've coached against Daniel Jones for a few years now. What is it about his ability to kind of create with his legs and also make throws that he's done pretty well in his career against this team particularly?
The ability for the second play to begin. Oftentimes you'll see on a drop back, you'll hear us use the word like play above the 2.3, meaning the first play where a time to throw, that's a general NFL average. So when the second play begins, how do you respond? And so that, to me, is one of the things that make his game unique. He's got speed and athleticism. He remains a runner, where some QBs would go and get down or get out of bounds, and so he remains in that space and really has confidence in his running ability, which he should. But that's one of the real strong points of his game.
So he has killed us with his legs in the past, and we saw what Baker did to us last week against his pass rush. And I went back and I watched all of Daniel Jones' scrambles, and he did the same thing, or tried to do the same thing against the Vikings. He had 6 carries for 15 yards. 3 of his carries were design runs. They were a little weird. He had a receiver go in motion across him, and he was in shotgun, and he basically had a guard pulling and leading him off tackle. Didn't really go anywhere, right? But he did scramble and buy some time. And for me, and I'm jumping ahead a tad bit, what we have to do, just giving 3 things that have to happen this week for us to win. They have got to get Daniel to the ground and keep contain on his ass, right? They cannot let him get outside the pocket and use his legs, because the second he saw a little bit of daylight, if the defensive tackle took a couple steps over and there was a massive hole between the tackle and the end, he put the ball down and ran. Whether it was stepping up in the pocket and making a throw or what, he put it down and ran. We got to make sure we don't give him a chance to do that this week against us, because Baker did that last week. And best be sure Danny Dimes watched that film and is drooling right now because of what he saw Baker do to us with his legs.
Yeah, that's not good at all. And he's bigger than Baker as well. I mean, Daniels is kind of a stout guy. So he knows us. We always say that we know our enemy, they know us, and we know them. And we know that this kid is going to be hard to take down. That's just how it is. And so I believe we've got to have 5 rushing as 1.
They really do. I mean, just put some pressure on him. I mean, he did get sacked 5 times and lost 20 yards. He also had 2 horrible interceptions. One interception, you remember Kerrigan's interception, I think against the Eagles, where he basically jumped up, tipped the pass. It was going to be a screen, tipped it to himself and ran it in for a touchdown.
Yeah.
That was basically an exact replica of one of Daniel Jones' touchdowns, right? Or interception pick sixes. He was trying to set up, I think it was a wide receiver screen. The end saw it, jumped up in the air, grabbed the ball, ran right in, right? If Jamin Davis can do that, I will take back every negative thing I have said about him for the past 2 years on this podcast.
Well, Jamin didn't really have a bad game last Sunday.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, I might be taking it all back.
He's coming into his own at that position. And so, I'll continue to say it. And 4th preseason game, first one that really counted. So I think that these guys have a lot that's on tape. This Tampa game was a baseline game to see everybody, how they played together. They understand that now they can actually see it for themselves. And I think that we will do better. My fingers are crossed that we would do better. Yeah.
I think if you cross 2, it's bad luck. You just need to cross 1. I don't know.
Okay, just 1. There it is. I take that back.
We do. And I gave one of my keys. Let me get your 3 keys for us to win this week.
Well, the secondary has got to communicate. Obviously, if the youngins are going to play, the secondary coach has got to get the youngins to be able to talk more. And we heard them say we didn't talk as much as we could have. My second key, as I said, 5 rushing is 1. And the third is we have a Heisman Trophy winner. He has got to produce more with his arm and eyes than his feet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said, especially the rushing is one piece. I unfortunately think our secondary is what it is, right? They're bad. So how do you help out a bad secondary? You get a damn good pass rush. Yeah. You blitz, you get pressure on that quarterback, and you don't give him time to pick our secondary apart. And I need Frankie Louvu and this defensive line and Jeremy Chin, these other guys to step up and actually get some pressure on Daniel Jones. Because I do not have faith in, if you guys listen to this podcast, haven't known by now, in Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juice and just the secondary in general to keep up and do what they need to do. And they go with a lot of 2 tight end sets. At least from this past game, it was a ton of 2 tight end sets. So to me, my linebackers and my safeties are going to have to step up and actually cover.
Been working overtime. Yeah.
That's going to be Bobby stepping up and covering and making sure things are good. Sandra still, right? You had a not too good game last week. Now's your chance. Step up. Those Giants tight ends are not scary, right? These Giants secondary, other than Malik Neighbors, no one really scares me for the team in the secondary. So if the defensive line can actually get some pressure, I think we're good. Who are you scared of?
Don't jinx us. Don't jinx
I
us.
hear
Let
you.
them.
I'm just being real. I'm not.
I
It's
understand.
not
No
the
household
Bucks.
names. No household names. I got you. No true household names. Man, Ted, I just don't. I just don't want them to be a world beater against us. And we've said coming into this, nobody likes to lose, but how you lose.
Yeah.
And if we're competitive throughout the whole game and hypothetically lose by a field goal or whatever have you, then okay. I may not like it, but I want to see, did I get my money's worth, if that makes sense? Because that's going to dictate if fans come back or not, how you lose and how you win. If we go out there and dominate these guys and then go to Cincy and put up a good fight, because no one's going to give us a chance at Cincy on the road with
they lost to the Patriots, but I hear you. I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it, but I'm not taking Cincy. I'm not taking us.
Yeah. See, you see, so it's how you play this game, and we spoke about it in length about Detroit a couple of years back. Detroit looked bad, but then all of a sudden they started looking good, even though they were losing, if there's such a thing. I know that didn't sound right, but they looked good in their loss, and you're like, man, that Detroit team is going to be a force to reckon with. That's what I'm hoping that where we are. And we also said, fans, temper your expectations. That's all. Temper them. I thought that we could possibly go in and catch Tampa sleeping, and that's why I thought that we could win that game. Obviously, I was wrong, but we have an opportunity to beat these Giants in 3 days in a wake up. They're not a good team. Right now, we're not a good team, and we gotta do more of the right things than wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of right things, they've got to get these wide receivers involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to stack the box against B-Rob and against Eckler because they're not scared of the wide receivers. We did not have a positive yard until the second half for the wide receiver core. It was one catch for nothing with Luke McCaffrey. Right?
Do you think that Noah Brown's going to play this game?
I don't think he is. Just hearing Quinn talk, it doesn't sound like Quinn has a ton of faith in him being ready yet. And Noah gives you height over the other guys. Who do you take out? You take out Luke McCaffrey? You take out OZ? You take out Diami? I don't know. Granted, none of them really did anything, but I think OZ is doing double duty as something else. So who do you take out of the actual lineup?
You take out who had the better practice that week.
Yeah.
Whoever had the best practice or better practice that week, unfortunately, you lose your position and this guy steps up. You brought him in for a reason. So obviously he can do something. So maybe he doesn't know the offense that well just yet. Who knows? But if whoever had the better practice, that's who you play.
1,000% agree. And that's why I'm wondering, is he there yet? And B. Mitch said when he saw him in Tampa, he looked good warming up. And he said Johnny Newton looked good warming up. Newton was a DNP, and it was foot rest. So it had nothing to do with him, actually. Well, granted, saying rest with his foot, right? Zach Ertz was a DNP today, and it was rest. So maybe Johnny's going to play. Maybe Noah's going to play, and we'll get to see what he can do. Fingers crossed. Brandon Coleman was a full participant with his shoulder. So maybe Brandon won't be splitting actual reps because who wasn't as good this past week was Andrew Wiley. Maybe Big Luke can move to right and we put Coleman at left. And instead of Wiley being a liability, because Wiley was a liability last year against these Giants.
Definitely was.
A liability this past week against the Bucks. Wiley against the Giants worries the hell out of me. Right. And maybe, hopefully, Big Luke has played all up and down that line except for center. He can play right tackle.
Who's the cat they brought in up from Howard? I mean, I don't know. Is he a tackle or is he a guard? The big guy. He's a big dude.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name. I think it's like an African name possibly, but he's a big boy.
You're just saying that because he went to Howard?
No, his name is like an African name.
Aneem Dankwa.
Hello.
Yeah,
I think that's an African name.
He's 6'8", 353 pounds, and he's an offensive lineman from Ghana, one of the biggest players on the field at that point, and he's on the practice squad. So I don't see him. Yeah, he's still learning. He's still getting reps, and it'll be interesting to see if he comes in. If he does come in, I think we got a little bit of a bigger problem. But you talk about who had a better practice, who's stepping up, with Noah Brown. To me, it's the same thing with Wiley, right? And if Luke and Coleman have a better practice, hey, I've got no allegiance to Wiley.
Oh, that's who you go with at this juncture. Quinn said it, we'll be evaluating all of this stuff, and you got to do what you got to do because there are no feelings in football. Who's going to give me the better opportunity to win and achieve my goal? This ain't high school or Pop Warner where, I got to play you because your mom said I had to play you. No, this isn't it. People's careers are on the line.
Well, not even high school Pop Warner. I mean, remember last season, freaking Rivera was playing people just because he drafted their ass and he didn't want to look stupid, right? Cameron Cheeseman was the worst rated special teams player in the whole NFL. But just because we drafted a long snapper, we kept his ass in there. Guess who we didn't draft? Forbes. Guess who they didn't sign? Wiley. There are a lot of other guys on this team that are still Rivera castoffs that hopefully they won't be afraid to sit their ass down and put someone else in next man up, not even from an injury perspective, but from a just busting your ass hustle perspective. And I think that's why we're going to win the game this week. Just giving my prediction.
Okay. All right.
I think we win on Sunday because I hate to say it, not because it's the Giants, but because it's these New York Giants, right? They don't have Saquon anymore. Saquon was always just a pain in the ass for us to deal with, so they had to respect him. He never really gashed us a ton, but it is a different New York Giant team, right? Yes, they still have Daniel Jones, and yes, freaking Tommy Cutlets kicked our ass, and now I'm starting to talk myself out of this, but I think we can win this game this week, man. On top of the fact that
flip-flop, boy.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a fish, but we got to win this game, right? It's the New York freaking Giants coming into our stadium. Our fans are going to be there. We are not going to be flooded with Giants fans for a change. We're not going to be flooded with that hideous color in our stands. It's going to be burgundy and gold, whether it's the old jersey or the new jersey or the middle jersey. It's going to be us there, and it's going to be up to these fans to have it feel like a real home field advantage. And I think that's what's going to happen this week. What do you think?
We need to go 1-0 in the division. We really do. We need a win in the division, and we need a win at home. Point blank, period. And so with that being said, I have no doubt in my military mind that Quinn is going to have these guys ready to play. I really do. I feel as though, as I said it before, and I'm going to say it again, the tape provided a baseline of where everyone is and realize where they need them to be. So I look forward to, in 3 days in a wake up, seeing our guys in burgundy. What jersey are they wearing? Do you know by chance?
I gotta look that up. Burgundy and gold, I think, because I think we're going gold pants.
Okay, so I'll be going back to my burgundy jersey.
I don't like that, to be honest with you, because it's, to me, you don't wear burgundy or any dark colors in the beginning of the season because it's too hot.
Well, okay. I'm gonna have my burgundy on, brother. And I'm gonna stop by your tailgate and get some dirty water hot dogs and some apple sauerkraut. And I'm going do what I do and get everybody ready. That's all I can do. And hopefully the team gets the players ready for their home opener at Northwest Stadium. And by the way, did you see Northwest Stadium on the flag? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
It's on the flag, brother. You'll see it Sunday then.
All right. I can't wait to take a picture with you and see that and just see you in general, man. It'll be a good time.
Yes, indeed, man. Yes, indeed. Well, as always, the music is playing, which brings us to a close. Hopefully the Commanders can go 1-1 with their home opener at Northwest Stadium. 1-0 at home. I need to see that in my life for a change. Hey, that's going to do it for this edition of DMV Mess Hall. Thank you guys for riding with us. Tailgate Ted, Rally Captain, you rep it hard or you don't rep it at all.